Alfonso, first of all, starting from the top, I believe you have royal blood?
It's a little bit, you need to sort of speak to a historian because he probably knows way more than I do. But in a nutshell, um, my family originally comes from France, the Orleans, the French kings, and there was a bit of a revolution there, so they kind of left and they migrated south, like people who tend to migrate. And with that, they intermarried the Spanish kings, royal family, and all that, and I pretty much am related there. His Majesty the King of Spain is an uncle of mine, but let's say I'm not into any of this, the court and all that sort of things. I mean, I love my family dearly. I mean, for me, he's more of an uncle than a king, He's actually an uncle and I love him a lot. But, I'm in motorsports, I travel a lot, and I'm not into this social sort of scene like most people would. A lot of Americans actually think I'm American. And when they ask, where are you from? I said, Tenerife. Oh, where's that? Off the coast of Morocco. We have an island there? No, you don't. Um, Sorry to put it that way. No, I was born in the Canary Islands, Spain, and then I pretty much spent my whole life between Houston, Texas, Boston, New York, and all that, with a little bit of a stint in between in English boarding schools. So all English education, 100%. I've never actually learnt Spanish. I speak it being Spanish, but I never went to school. The only education I had was O levels and A levels, and then US University.
Alfonso, how did you first become interested in motorsport?
Well, I'll give you the short version. Um, Basically, I had nothing to do with racing. My mother did rallies in Italy, and my grandfather raced in the equivalent of MotoGP or whatever it was back in the 50s. So I don't know what it was called back then, with the leather helmets and those sort of things. So there was some history, but they kind of kept me out of it. And, I went off and did my studies and all that. And I came back and by pure chance, someone let me drive around in a Formula Ford Paul Ricard, and I was the quickest, and I didn't think anything of it. But then I was told, you should probably do karting. So I went, "Oh, okay." And so I went off to Spain and did one of the categories in karting, and I was Spanish champion. And then I thought, well, it's maybe a good time to go and see some sponsors. I bumped into Repsol, who the logical progression would have been going to Formula Ford in the UK, sort of like Pedro de la Rosa did just a couple of years earlier. And Repsol were like, no, 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 we're not into those sort of programs, but we've got a Le Mans program. Would you like to do it? And I was like, okay. And I was thrown really in the deep end because the first cars I drove after karting were these 24-hour Le Mans GTs. And as a matter of fact, the first race I ever finished after the karting was the 24 Hours of Le Mans. These days that wouldn't be possible. I don't know how they got me a license. They arranged it and all that. And I actually got to race and I was thinking, I remember the first laps going around. I had this friend of mine, Keith, UK bloke, good friend. He was the guy who did design the Harrods McLaren car. And he was there with me. And I was like, Keith, that's really insane. I think I'm going to kill myself. And there was Eddie Irvine in the Toyotas. It was 1994. So there were the Group C's. And we're in this pinky little Ferrari 348. It was pretty much a challenge with a wing on it. And I went out. And honestly, I've never seen such a difference with cars. Even now, I don't see such a difference. And I thought, okay, it's like a truck passed me. The car nearly got blown off the track, being passed by these Toyotas. So I did an out lap and an in lap like they wanted. And I was telling Keith, I think this is a bit insane. I think we should just go home. It's like, okay, he was smart. He said, okay, fine, just do 5 more laps so we don't upset the sponsors. So I went out and after obviously 5 laps, I got the hang of it. And I thought, okay, this is not bad. And we went off to finish, I think we finished 10th or 11th overall, starting dead last. So that's how the racing started, but it was purely accidental. It wasn't something I worked into, and it just happened. And later on, the team was the same thing. In 1999, I was fed up of racing, didn't want to continue racing anymore, and I just wanted to quit. And the people in Repsol were like, no, 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 no. Why don't you start a team? So, okay. So I went off and set up a GT team with Porsche at Le Mans for Repsol. And then after that, it just took off and became the current team. But again, accidentally. I want to just quit and go off to, I don't know, grow grapes and things.
But I would guess that you don't use those connections to help raise sponsorship.
No, I've found out that if you do that, you're going to find yourself very quickly being dropped from someone saying, yeah, they'll help you out, and then they don't, and things like that. So I don't ask. It is true who I am opens me doors, and it is true I have an easier time sitting in front of a CEO. But I will get a no just like anyone else will get a no. So that doesn't change. I mean, the answer will be the same. But I do have an easier time being able to access whoever I need to access.
What's always impressed me about racing engineering is your total commitment to GP2 and not really, therefore, being distracted by anything else. Because GP2 is not cheap and it's not easy and it's very difficult. It's a difficult championship in which to excel on a consistent basis.
No. GP2, I think, is one of the most difficult championships out there for the simple reason that, we do have the same cars, the same engines, and the same tires. It's who's able to put all that package together as best as possible, and also identifying the drivers that are capable of doing it. So it is a very difficult championship. We've won the the drivers' championship once, not like some other teams. I think only ART have been more than us. Everyone else has just won it once. So, in that respect, we're pretty much up there. But the main difference, I think, compared to, I wouldn't say other people, because I don't want to be derogatory in that respect, but for me, really, it is a business. We run it first as a business, and if it works as a business and the numbers add up, then we go on to do the best we can in racing. But if the numbers don't add up, we're not going to do it. Our motto literally is we either do it properly or we just don't do it. I'd rather go off and grow grapes or whatever people who don't do this anymore do. But it is 100% dedication. In other words, I do work 7 days a week. I do have meetings at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday evening instead of going out to the pub. Why? Because that's what I do. If I then have some free time, it's because I did my job properly.
Right. And GP2 is a difficult championship because there's a limited amount of television, a bit more this year, but it's still a championship driven by drivers bringing sponsorship money to the teams. Well,
in the past, as they've probably seen in our cars, we have been sponsored by major corporations. I think we've been the team that's raised the most sponsorship of any team in GP2. So we tend to be as much sponsor driven as we can to make a good deal for the drivers that come. We're generally, I wouldn't say the cheapest team, but historically we've been one of the cheapest teams around, even though we get a good service. Why? Because we honestly, our budget is what it is. You can't reduce it. I mean, that's what it costs. If people do it for less, then they're cutting some corners. But to do it properly, it costs what it costs.
And let's just put that to number, because it's no secret,
is it? This year, there's a couple of things. We've got more flyway. If it would have been purely European races, like we had in the past, I think you could probably do properly to try to win for about 1.5 million.
Euros?
Yes, euros, sorry. In regards to trying to win now with this many faraway races, and if races do increase in the future, it won't be in European races, so there will be more flyaway races. You're getting very close to 2 million doing it properly.
Right.
That is, I don't get a salary. We spent all the money on spares, everything that is necessary. I'm not going to tell too much about it, but we do throw a lot of money at it, which doesn't go into our pockets, so it goes elsewhere. So the thing is that dedication is 100% towards helping the drivers. In the past, we found sponsorship to reduce that amount. As a matter of fact, one year we even got to practically zero for one of the drivers. Spain, sadly, where we historically found our sponsors, is not in very good shape. It's like going to look for money in Greece, for example. And that's where, let's say, where the problems are today. We're looking more at drivers bringing a budget than us being able to finance them because we don't have access to that.
Yeah.
And that's basically the direction GP2 is going, because we don't have enough TV to be able to sell space on the car. That is, like you said, is going to change. And let's hope it will help, especially the English teams. But we'll see. I don't know what the outcome will be.
I've had some really interesting and good, talented people going through racing engineering over the years, not only drivers, but also personnel. Eric Boulier being a good example.
You kind of had an inkling he was going to go to Formula One, just simply the way his organization, the way he did things. And let's say F1 was really where he's going to go. But drivers as well. I mean, we've got Vettel going through our team. It wasn't GP2, he was in Formula 3. But that was an impressive driver. I'd say with Justin Wilson, Vettel has been the most impressive driver we've had. Although Justin was off the scale. I still think he was the best driver we've ever had. But being too tall obviously caused some problems for him to get into F1 cars. But I think if he was either shorter or the F1 cars longer, F1 would have had an exceptional talent. Because I still think to this day, Justin had that little bit extra that Vettel didn't have. But then again, to be fair, Justin had just come from winning Formula 3000 and Vettel was his first year in F3. So it's not a very good comparison. So I'd say Vettel right now should be the same. But Justin was an exceptional driver.
Fabio Lima?
Yeah, fantastic. I think he's got pretty much the same level of concentration and just dedication that I saw in someone like Vettel and Justin. That sort of the absolute, like, no holds bars. Like, oh, do I have to hang upside down from the rafters every evening? Well, I'm going to do that if it takes to win the championship. That just shows the amount of dedication that some of the drivers in the past we didn't have. Vittori's had a bit of that, but, you know, how do you say, exchanging with DTM, you know, last year he did GP2 and DTM.
Yep.
I think it just wore him out, both physically and mentally, and we couldn't get 110% out of him. And I think he really had a chance to win the championship, but not doing both championships. Will Fabio win the championship this year? Let's see. Let's first get through testing, and then I'll let you know a little bit more about it. But he does have the possibilities.
You have determination, you have passion, you have commitment, and Formula One is still out there. What are your views on potentially doing Formula One in the future?
Not at the current economic level. No, absolutely not. I mean, if someone came up to me and said, I'll give you an F1 team for €1, I still wouldn't do it. Because the world today does not allow another F1 team, no matter what connections you have, no matter what you can do. If you're an established team like McLaren or Ferrari that have been around forever, it is a little bit easier, but they're still struggling. I mean, it's not that easy. Or Red Bull having a massive financing behind, and I'd say it's still a little bit difficult. Look at Toro Rosso, same financing, although they're doing a little bit better this year. F1 is definitely not on the cards right now. I'd say more Le Mans. I'd love to run an Audi at Le Mans. I mean, that is my dream. Sadly, I think it would bankrupt me, but that really would be that would be the icing on the cake. More than an F1 team, honestly. But that I come from endurance racing and prototypes and all these beautiful, lovely cars from Le Mans. So it's a little bit difficult. If I had to choose between the two, I would go to Le Mans. Sorry.